Hey everybody, it's Ron, and I want to tell you a story about business and how that story changed everything. It's spring of 1962. You're standing on a street corner on Market Street in San Francisco. You reach up, pull the large flat door down, and drop an envelope into one of those big blue mailboxes. Maybe it's a birthday card, maybe it's a check, maybe it's just a letter to someone you haven't seen in a while. Either way, you let the envelope go, that metal door swings shut, and you walk away without giving it another thought. But here's what you didn't think about. That envelope now has to find a single specific house, not a neighborhood, not a city, a specific house on a specific road outside, let's say, Caribou, Maine. It's a small farming town sitting right up against the Canadian border, nearly 3,400 miles away from where you dropped that envelope. It's surrounded by potato fields and spruce forests at the far edge of the country from where you stand. Think about what that actually requires. In 1962, the average piece of mail passed through 17 separate sorting stops before it reached its destination. 17. And the system handling all of that was built for a different America. Railway mail cars and small-town post offices. Not jet cargo and 66 billion pieces of mail, which is what the USPS handled that year. The whole thing ran on handwritten labels and human memory. Nobody had solved the efficiency question about a mail system that was just getting bigger and bigger. Now, with all of that in mind, let me tell you about a man you've probably never heard of, but you use his idea pretty much every day of your life. His name was Robert Moon, and in 1944 he was a postal inspector working out of Philadelphia. Robert could see something most of his colleagues couldn't. The volume was only going one direction, and that was up. The old system wasn't going to be able to hold. So he came up with an idea to make things run smoother and easier. A 3-digit code that would route every piece of mail through regional processing hubs automatically by number instead of guesswork. He wrote up his idea and submitted it to the post office department. They said no. He submitted again. They said no again. So how do you hold on to an idea for nearly 2 decades while the problem it was meant to solve keeps getting worse? How do you watch 66 billion pieces of mail move through a broken system every year, knowing you worked out the fix before most of the people running that system understood there was a problem? And how did all of that finally come to a head on July 1st, 1963, when the United States Post Office launched something called the Zone Improvement Plan, and Robert Moon's 3 digits became the foundation of a 5-digit code that would quietly rewrite American commerce forever. From Business Basics, I'm Ron Trucks, and this is Business History, the daily podcast where we explain the stories that changed business forever. Every date on the calendar has a story where business reshaped the world. Today, July 1st, that takes us to 1963. 5 digits that moved everything. Robert Moon was not the kind of person you'd expect to redesign American infrastructure. He grew up in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, started his postal career as a mail clerk and carrier, and became an inspector not because of a college degree, he didn't have one, but because he outscored everyone else on the exam. He and his wife Barbara moved roughly 25 times during his career, city to city, assignment to assignment, the way people did when they took the Postal Service seriously as a career and went where the work was. Robert was also an amateur pilot, and that detail matters more than it may seem. Moon wasn't looking at the mail system from inside a sorting room. He was looking at it from above, thinking about regions and distances and flow. And what he saw by the early 1940s was a system that was already straining under volume it wasn't built to handle, about to get hit by a post-war economy that would make everything worse. Robert's solution was elegant in the way that the best infrastructure ideas usually are, simple on the surface with enormous leverage underneath. 3 digits, that's all he proposed. The first digit identified one of 10 broad geographic regions of the country, sweeping from 0 in the Northeast to 9 on the West Coast. The second and third digits narrowed the mail down to a sectional center facility, a regional processing hub that would sort everything bound for the post offices in its area. Instead of a letter bouncing through 17 stops on instinct and memory, it would move through a defined hierarchy automatically by number. When Moon submitted the proposal in 1944, the Post Office Department wasn't ready for it yet. He submitted it again, still nothing. It took a third submission, 19 years of waiting, and a mail crisis serious enough that leadership finally had no good argument left against it before Postmaster General Edward Day picked up Moon's 3-digit framework and added 2 more digits for local delivery zones. 5 digits total, the Zone Improvement Plan. ZIP, the zip code. The launch on July 1, 1963 was voluntary, which meant the post office had to sell it. They created a cartoon mascot named Mr. Zip, a speedy little mail carrier who showed up on posters in every post office, on decals on mail trucks, and buttons worn by postal workers. Singer Ethel Merman recorded a promotional jingle to the tune of Zippity-Doo-Dah. Even cartoon detective Dick Tracy endorsed the system. The campaign targeted bulk mailers first, government agencies, magazine publishers, catalog companies, because if the big volume users adopted it, the infrastructure would flow. By January 1, 1967, bulk rate mailers were required to pre-sort by zip code. The voluntary experiment was over, and the system was locked in. In later years, what the post office built to sort mail faster, American business quietly turned into something else entirely. The bulk mailers were the first to figure it out. Catalog companies like Sears and L.L. Bean were already operating massive direct mail operations, sending millions of pieces a year to customers they knew almost nothing about. Zip codes changed that. 5 digits tied to a specific geography meant you could now segment your mailing list by location, not just by state, not just by city, but neighborhood-level precision. You could test different offers in different markets. You could figure out where your best customers lived and saturate those areas. You could stop mailing catalogs to zip codes that never bought anything and put that money somewhere where it worked. L.L. Bean grew its direct mail operations so aggressively through the late 1960s and 1970s that by 1976, the company was handling enough volume to be assigned its own dedicated zip code. That's not a milestone the post office hands out lightly. It's a signal of just how completely the catalog industry had restructured itself around Moon's 3 digits and the 2 that were added on. But the marketing companies were just the beginning. By the early 1970s, insurance firms were using zip codes to set premiums, mapping accident rates and crime statistics and property values by delivery zone. The Census Bureau was using them to organize and present demographic data. Public opinion pollsters were asking respondents for their zip codes so survey results could be weighted by region. Political campaigns were using them to target voters. What had started as a routing code for sorting rooms was becoming a universal geographic identifier, a way of attaching almost any kind of data to a specific place. The direct marketing industry that grew on top of this infrastructure earned an estimated $135 billion by 1986, touching virtually every American household through the mailbox every year. That industry didn't exist at that scale before zip codes made geographic targeting practical. Moon's 3 digits, combined with Day's 2 digits, had accidentally created the address system for American commerce, a data layer that businesses and government agencies and researchers would spend the next several decades learning how to use. The system Robert Moon spent 19 years trying to get approved is now embedded in systems he never imagined and couldn't have predicted. When you type your billing zip code into a website checkout to verify your credit card, you're using Moon's routing logic as a security layer. When Amazon calculates your delivery window, it starts with your zip code. When a hospital maps the spread of a disease, or a school district draws its boundaries, or a real estate algorithm estimates your home value, zip codes are part of all those calculations. Auto insurance premiums are set partly by traffic and crime statistics within your zip code. Political campaigns use them to target advertising down to the neighborhood level. The 5 digits that were designed to move a birthday card from San Francisco to Caribou, Maine without 17 sorting stops have become one of the most widely used geographic data points in the country. In 1983, the USPS extended the system with Zip plus 4, adding 4 more digits to narrow delivery down to a specific building or a floor or a side of a street. The original 5 digits had held up for 20 years before the volume and complexity of American commerce required another layer of precision. Today, there are more than 41,000 zip codes in the United States, and the system adds and adjusts roughly 2,000 of them every year as population shift, new developments go up, and delivery routes get redrawn. The structure Moon designed in 1944 is still underneath all of it. Robert Moon retired from the Postal Service in 1977 and lived to see his 3 digits become the foundation of an addressing system that outlasted the original problem it was built to solve. He died in 2001 at the age of 83. The post office credited him with the first 3 digits. The last 2 went to someone else. He never made much of that distinction publicly. The institution he spent his career serving is still working through its own next chapter. Physical mail volume has been declining for years, and the Postal Service is navigating a world where the thing that made zip codes necessary in the first place, billions of letters moving across the country every day, is no longer the center of the operation. The infrastructure Moon built turned out to be more durable than the use case that it created. Whether the institution around it finds the same footing is still an open question. What Moon understood without anyone asking him to think about it that way is that a simple, consistent standard applied across an entire system creates value that compounds in ways nobody anticipates at the time. He wasn't trying to build a data layer. He wasn't trying to create a marketing infrastructure. He was trying to get a birthday card from San Francisco to a farmhouse outside Caribou, Maine, without losing it 17 times along the way. The 5 digits did that, and then they did everything else. I'm Ron Trucks, and this is Business History, the podcast that finds the turning points behind the headlines. To hear more stories like this, follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen. And if you're enjoying the stories, don't forget to subscribe and leave a quick review. It helps more people find the story behind the business. And if you want to actually understand business better without the fluff or the buzzwords or the MBA language, start by visiting us at businessdailypodcast.com.